The music's not too loud, right? Okay, so let me just bring in the side of this a little bit. Great. Clomp, clomp down my stairs. So a 2B or a 4B, probably start with a 2B or even an HB if you have it. Happy birthday, Teresa. Yes, indeed. Now, since I've got this at flat, I'm going to lean over it so that I'm squared up to it. So, or we can tilt it a little bit while I draw it, just so that I can get it, the drawing accurate, which it'll be tilted to you guys, but let's do just a light sketch, because if we go too intense, too dark, it will now we still want to treat it like kind of like a gesture. Here's the body is one shape, head, the beak, its wings, like so. Clomp, clomp, clomp. I made his head a little too big for the size of his wings, so we're going to bring that down a little bit. Because it's got to fit on my paper. Like I said, keep it light. I know it's hard to see it, but we don't want heavy dark lines on the paper when we're doing watercolor. And the techniques with the traditional pan watercolors won't be that much different from the pencils. The pencils just allow you to lay the color down dry first and then go in with the water and let it 1, 2, 3, 4 smear around a little bit. Now, here's a nice thing to notice about bird and bird anatomy. It's just his head's right here. There's his beak here. A little tiny eye. Black underside of his beak. This is moving away from us. So the wing extends pretty significantly beyond the head, probably by a head and a half size. Let me make this a little bit longer. So when you're drawing for proportion and just doing this super light so that we don't make it too dark, too interfering with the watercolor. But these little negative spaces can be super helpful. Drawing what the not bird is in a way. Does that make any sense? Now I would say that his wing tips are going to actually touch the bottom of my page here. That's okay. So my drawing might be a little bit cropped, but and the shapes, and some very distinctive shapes of the colors here. And his wing is coming more forward. A lump right there. And then I think those are called pinion feathers. as the ones that they trim when they want to try to keep the birds from flying, which seems as cruel as cutting cat claws off, or declawing cats, except the wingtips grow back. And he's on an angle, you know, he's flowing off this way or this way. So a little bit of a planar mentality, as if you were drawing on a plane, can be helpful. So yeah, to make him accurate, his wings are going to come off the bottom end, but I'd rather do that than try to shorten him up artificially. Or start over, which I don't feel like doing right now. Lazy, yes. Could count the feathers, and if I was really going to be neurotic about it, I would count the feathers to make sure that I had just the right amount. But what we can at least do is see how there's a very strong, here's this is the tip, here flat, very strong center line on that. It's almost like an accordion. So I want to keep that in mind while we're doing this. And this is the second layer of wings, of feathers here. There's actually a third layer, I guess, here. And then a fourth layer here. This is a lighter area, it hits the light, the sunlight's hitting on it. And we have 3 basic chunks coming off here. And then it comes into a point between the shoulder blades. And then we have a green layer right here. So the red layer here, the green layer there, and looks like there's yellow in it as well. So here's the green layer, and there's the red layer, and it's in perspective. So draw what you see and not what you think you know. There's the blue tips, and then the second layer, the third layer, and then the fourth layer goes out beyond that. Okay. I'm satisfied with that drawing, I think. Clean it up a little bit because the pencil lines will show through, and they'll also muddy up your paint. So you do want to try to really knock those out as much as you can. Not completely, but enough. I might have to put on my glasses for this one. That sucks. Getting old really sucks, you know? People say it's better than the alternative, but I'm not convinced. I am not convinced.
What's the alternative? Die young, stay pretty?
Yeah, Live fast, die young, and leave a good-looking corpse. All right. It's not the growing old, that's the part I don't like. It's the collapse of the bodily functions, like eyesight. And unfortunately, my glasses are not good for the computer. They're only good for really far away and really close up. But to do this accurately, I need to be able to see it. So I might have to get a different set from my computer if I want to do this work. All right. So I have a little thing of water. I have a little tissue. I have my dirty little palette. I think probably most of the colors I need are on there, but I have some more with me if I need them. And brushes. And I'll choose a few. This might be good for the background. I like angled brushes. They're pretty cool. I love filberts. Well, that's actually used to be an angled brush. It's kind of worn down. A couple of detail brushes. There's another filbert. Pencil. And an angle. So I like the angle brushes. I probably would replace some of these because they use them up pretty strongly. All right, so the other thing you want to do is squirt. If you've got it reusing your palette, what I like to have is a squirt bottle to spray the palette down a little bit.
You turn the recording back on?
Yeah, I did actually. So we'll spray this down with just a regular old water bottle. Put it on. Mist. Not a shot. Oh, come on. I'm getting my living room all wet now. Studio all wet. I want it on a spray mist. There we go. And don't know if it matters all that much where you start. The most important thing is going to be the lights and the darks. So when you're doing watercolor, you have to preserve your lights. There's not a good, easy way to get them back once you've colored them, although you can recover them somewhat. And I think I'm going to start with some of the darker areas first. So under this red, I've got probably, color-wise, I've got several blues. There's I believe it's cerulean, ultramarine, probably cobalt. And I've got a couple of greens, viridian green and olive green, a little lemon yellow, more lemon yellow. This is probably lemon yellow. No, this is probably cad yellow, and maybe another kind of a cad yellow. More greens here. Just raw sienna, burnt sienna, burnt umber, a couple of oranges. That's magenta or alizarin. That's definitely alizarin. So I'm not super strong on color theory, but the theory is that you should always have a cool, actually I know that I need more cadmium. A cool red is would be the alizarin, and a warm red would be the cadmium, for example. So you want a cool color and a warm color for each of your colors. The cool colors are going to be bluish black, and they'll go in the shadows, which is why I'm going to start with that. And the thing about watercolors is, of course, that they'll pretty much like to do their own thing. You're just kind of along for the ride. So I have alizarin, and I'm hitting it up with a little CAD to brighten it a little bit. And marking off the white. We don't want to touch the white. If I had masking fluid, I would go ahead and mask off the white on the bird's eye. It's a little bit under here, a little shadow. Let's see, where else do I find that color? I'd find it a little bit in here. I do like to try to utilize similar, put a little bit of the color everywhere. I don't generally do, well, you can't really do an understudy value painting in watercolor, though you could do a study of it in a value and then transfer it and rework it so that it's in. Oh crap, my headphones are about to die. Plug them in. It's a bit, so I try to keep the bluish or the coolish red on the shadow parts only. And then I'm going to have to go in with more cadmium. Or, let's see what I got. Quindrison violet, no. Alizarin, that's cool. It's a cool red. I want a hot red. Nathal red is like cadmium red, or true red, or a couple of other reds you could call it. Now you see there's highlights along the front of his wings there, so we don't want to work into that. It's actually a little bit of orange on the highlight of the red wings. So I'm going to work some of that in as well. So when things get in the light, you can't just add white to it to lighten it up, because, well, obviously if you add white to red, you'll get pink. So often you'll find that the highlights just kind of shift towards the next spectrum, which would be orange and yellow. That'll make it more highlights. And then what's kind of fun is that you can go back with a brush and kind of manipulate the paint a little bit. Not as much as you can with like oils or something, but a little bit. It's nice to be able to at least play around with it a little. And modulating the color across the wing, it does go almost like a pinkish as it gets up towards more of the light. And the yellow seems to be more on the back of it, near where the yellow comes in. Between the yellow could just be from the green, because yellow would be a highlight for green. So this is also a good practice for texture, because where you really see the texture on the feathers is not in the highlight and not in the deepest shadows down here, see it in the midtones, the transitional tones. So you want to focus your texture, whether you're drawing or painting, you want to focus your texture on those areas of in between the midtones. So there's no shadow, there's nearly no texture down here under the shadow. I'm going to put a little purple in that. It's purple rather than black. And because it's not really as black as the beak, for instance. I'm not even sure I have any black out. Oh, there's some. But let's continue with the red. You do see some texture here, and sort of like where it transitioned over the shoulders. So we can play that up a little bit. And so I painted the shadow underneath, which allows me to paint the overlapping on top. And I'm painting with a pretty dry brush, which is generally called scumbling. Oops, wrong red. I like to go a little dry brush with this kind of stuff. And it gives me a little bit more control. Although the control really is an illusion, because a watercolor will do whatever it wants. Almost covered over the highlight. So this is still like a little pinkish in some places. So I'm going to work some more of that orange up into it. And then keep in mind there's a highlight right there on the front. And we don't want to paint over the highlight. I did a tiny bit. I'm going to try to pull it out. There. Sometimes if you're lucky, you can pull the highlight back out. Well, you can see that really the texture is in between the highlight and the not highlight. Need some spiky stuff going on here. And a little highlight that I accidentally overwhelmed. So let me try to pull that out a little bit. This one right here. You pick it up by wetting your brush, wetting the paint, and then picking up the paint. So we at least get a little bit of a highlight in that part. And you can push the highlight a little further by making sure you have something dark underneath it or behind it. Okay, so I'm going to do the beak. That's nice and inky black. So the way that I'm working, it allows the paint in some areas to dry and it won't run when I don't want it to. It's easy to make it run, and you want to keep that for your own, for your control. Well, that's me. I'm not a watercolorist, really, but I'm an oil painter, and everything's about control, so I tend to treat my watercolors a little bit like oil paint. Alright, so his beak really is pink. Oh, okay. I'll take a look. No, it's kind of fun. Okay, now what you might want to do, since you have it on a tablet, start refining those lines on the pinion feathers, making those really sharp so that they're really like shadow, light, shadow, light, shadow, light, and working up the edges to bring it more roundness into it. You know what I mean? So the beak I'm going to actually do wet on wet and water it. I'm going to get it wet first and then do a little bit of the alizarin, which is making a lovely little pink. Oops, nope, that's more of a purple. Let me try the other red. But I like it to spread a little bit. And you can still do this with the pencils. Just hit it up with the water and let it spread. I'd like there to be a hard line there, but I've made it a little too wet. But we may be able to come back to that. All right, let's try the green. Greens are really, really, really hard for me for some reason. Now that the red is dry-ish, you can always try not to paint with cat hair. So we can go right up to the red since it's pretty dry. Grab some lemon yellow. I'll do this. So that pencil under there is making it kind of shabby looking. And we'll try a little more vibrant of a green here. While it's still wet, it's kind of nice. So I'm just going to tap it just to spread a little. Maybe put just a little water on it to help the spread. Yeah. That's kind of cool. I can live with that. Alright, it's under here. Just a little green. a little bit too bluey green right now, but I'll add some yellow to it. And it kind of goes from a yellowy green to a bluey green anyway. Now, so when you were having problems with, Melissa, with the outlines, you can use your watercolor to make more that edge. Like you might be tempted to put an edge along the wing tips here, but really what that really is just watercolor. And if you let the watercolor run, and you can still do this with the pencils, but you might try the traditionals as well. You can still add enough pigment to let the color kind of pool towards the edge, which is what gives it that kind of cool watercolory look. Which is something I don't think you can do digitally, but maybe you can. I don't know. Does it run when you try to paint on it? With a digital tablet? It's a blue feather right in there between the green and the red. So these are more in shadow, so they're going to be more bluey green. And I got some blue mucked up in my palette, which is good. So a dirty palette is good because colors are hardly ever just like straight out of the tube in real life. So I'm trying to get some of the darker green under the edge of some of the feathers too. Not just too much paint. It's not dark enough. So it needs a little bit of, do you know what happens how do you make a greeny black? It's actually, you use umber, raw umber with yellow. Will tend to go green. So I put a little raw umber under there. I don't know why it does it. I just know it does. I've seen it in action. So I'm putting a little bit of umber under the edge of the feather and over here under this edge of the feathers. It's easy to get lost. Fortunately, very few people are going to be able to look at my parrot and say, that doesn't look like the actual parrot that was flying around in the sky. But it's a representation of the parrot. That could be close enough, don't you think? So this is shadow. even go with some regular old black under there. Not much on the other side in the way of dark. So I'm just going to leave that. That would be an important element of painting digitally with watercolors, is to get it to run like watercolors do. Just really, that is the hallmark expression. No, I haven't tried the chameleon pens. What are they specifically? Oh, so do you use a special fading pen with it? Like a blender? Okay. So I'm just going to paint the shadow side of these feather tips first. I'm going to work from here. It's almost like a purpley color up here. Don't lose count. Oops, too dark. Oh, way too dark. It's okay, I'll fix it in a second. Just pull a little of that out. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I've lost count, but all right, I'll just go with it. Very dark at the tips and much lighter up here. Let's do another one. Do another one. So I guess I tend to do this. Bye, trees. Guess I'll go to this tucks around. The shape is very clear. And if I paint the shape in and let that dry, then I'll have a nice clean edge. And I can even lighten up the middle of it by adding a streak of water to make it really push out towards the edges, which will look really cool. Yeah, that's where watercolor can really be an advantage. And then you use the color itself for the outline. Instead of adding an outline to it, let the color run into its own outline and create an outline. I know you can get that kind of an effect with certain brushes in Photoshop. I mean, it's not as organic. It's definitely digitalized, too regular and whatnot. But you can come close to it with wet edges on your brushes. Send a little water there. And it'll only run to the place where the paper's already wet, and it'll stop. And it'll make a cool little edge. Okay, there's less contrast between the opinion here. More like a middle. And then it's lighter on either side, this last pinion before it goes completely into shadows. Pretty sure the feathers are called pinions. So now I'm going to work back, or go back and do the highlight side of the feather here. And then I noticed that there's some really, really dark, almost blue-black, just on the tips here. So if I catch that while it's still just a little damp, I might just do something cool. Okay, I have to knock it off at 5:30. So I got things I have to do, but the nice thing about watercolor is it's easy to put down and pick up again. So you see how I'm kind of getting that little accordion look on the feathers there? By really paying attention to where the lines of light and dark are falling and allowing the paint to do some of the work for me and not worrying about making an outline. Be a dark opinion here. You guys have any questions before I stop?
I sent you mine. I tried to do it in pastels. It doesn't look that good, but
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
I texted it to you. Maybe I should have
No, text
emailed
me.
it to you. Okay.
I haven't received it as a text yet, but texting is totally fine. Anybody who wants to text it can go ahead and do that. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that is a bad joke, Mike. So what you're doing is you're outlining. That's killing your stuff. Don't outline. Use the dark blue as the left side of the pinion feather and the light blue or white on the right side of the pinion feather. Do you know what I mean? So that you're not actually using the black at all. You want to save the black for the very end.
Yeah. Okay.
Let the color speak first.
Okay.
So the black will muddy it down, and you want to let the color do the value of the color itself in the pastels, because you can't get it unmuddied once you get it muddied. So yeah, I think that the Also, applying more pastel, don't be shy with it. Go for it. Just really, lay it on thick and rub it. And if it's too much, you can always just rub it off or blow it off.
Okay.
But you don't want to leave any white, especially with pastels. You really don't want to leave a lot of white paper showing through. In fact, if you're working on colored paper, that's better because that can help you and you can add white pastel to get the highlights.
Right. Okay.
And that shows up better on a colored background anyway.
Okay.
So that's what I would do with that.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to send me theirs? I know it's a scary thing. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. All right. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I'll post this up as part 1, and we will finish this up at another date.